reveling a few weeks ago, and I said the hardest thing to do is come up and speak when you're a guest speaker. That was almost even worse. Thanks a little bit. This is going to be awesome. Watch. I'm going to pass these around. If you guys don't mind, you can take these. I'm going to try and change it up a little bit for you guys. I know some of you have already heard this normal thing. Usually the speech I like to talk about the most is this idea of being optimistically optimistic. And I'm going to touch on that, and I'm going to give you the 6 key principles that they're passing around. But I really enjoy the smaller groups like this. Not that it's small, Elizabeth, you guys are crushing it. Elizabeth and Cassidy, well done. This is really cool. But with a group this size, I want to go a little deeper with you guys. And my goal for today, who heard me talk at Reveille the other day? Who all was there? So you remember what I said about visualization, and we're going to touch on that today, but just like I do before anything, I did my visualization exercise before stepping in here. And the one thing that I really want to do, I hate business theory. There's nothing worse than when somebody comes up in front of you to help you or give you a speech, and they tell you that, to grow your business or achieve more, you got to have integrity. Well, no crap, man, but how do I actually do it? So my goal is to give you some real tangible things that you can walk out of these doors and wake up Monday morning and get to work on whatever that best life is for you, whether it's professionally or personally or that big goal you've been wanting to work on. But really, since we have this size of a group, I want to spend a little time. I want you to all, every single one of you, to leave here kind of freeing yourself from the self-limiting things that we've put on ourselves, right? Like, who believes in the law of attraction? Put up your hand. Yeah. So, real quick, what is the law of attraction? What does that mean? Anybody? Throw something out. What do you think of when you think of law of attraction?
Everything you project out there will come back to you. So if you project a lot of positive energy, you'll get positive energy. If you treat people well, people will treat you well. Things like that.
Okay. Anything else? Yeah, that's spot on.
Reciprocity.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
That.
For the non-attorneys in the room.
that life is about, basically what she's saying, life is about getting what you give. And if you can't give with an earnest and honest heart, then you shouldn't expect anything back.
That's good. Yeah. What else? Law of attraction, wanting more, setting really big goals. We say it all the time when we meet with people, when we go to the networking breakfast, or we spend our Friday to come here. But do we really believe it? Like, who in this group really has that big crazy goal that they honestly really believe they're going to crush, and they wake up every single morning super on fire and excited, and honestly believes they can achieve it, like those big goals? That's what all I want to do today is remove any obstacles you have. You see people that have the big mansions, or you hear Will Smith talk about law of attraction. You're like, yeah, man, but you're Will Smith, right? Like, what about us regular people? And we put these limiting factors on ourselves. And one of the reasons, this is actually a hard speech for me to do because nobody likes talking about themselves, like it's awkward, right? This is one of the hardest speeches for me to do, but it's important because who knows where Vidor, Texas is, right? Like, that's where I grew up and went to high school, okay? Like, 12,000 people, the son of a school teacher and a pipe fitter, right? And my story is really cool because I've done some awesome things, but it's really cool for what I'm going to try to achieve in the next 10 years. Like, the last 10 have been awesome, but I'm going to really try to do some big things in the next 10. And Vidor, Texas, son of a teacher and a pipe fitter, and I just have this like almost unrealistic, optimistic attitude about what I can achieve, and no matter what happens to me and the negative setbacks or whatever comes my way or people telling me I shouldn't or couldn't try that, I just keep going. So this is the awkward part, but I have to tell you this part because you won't listen to me unless I do. So I'm just going to tell you my super short story. Graduate high school, go straight into the Marine Corps because didn't make good enough grades to go to college. Family didn't have the means to put me through college, so straight into high school. Did a couple deployments to Iraq in the early 2000s with those guys as a helicopter door gunner, and I wanted to put in for a commissioning program, which means the Marine Corps will send you back to school, the school of your choice, pay for you to go to school, and then you can come out and serve as a commissioned officer. Now, there's 200,000 enlisted Marines in the Marine Corps, and they select anywhere from 50 to 100 a year for this program. And the ones they select, as you can probably guess, are the best ones, the ones with the highest physical fitness scores. Out of 300, they want you to have like a 290 or above. I had like a 210, okay? So, my wife Kristen's here, she can tell you. I was not the poster child for, like I wasn't John Cena, right? Like, you see that guy get accepted for the program, you're like, of course. So I was like, no, I'm gonna do that. I started working on my little package, and everybody in my unit, the guys who were way more qualified, they're looking at me like, dude, what are you doing? You're not gonna get that. But like I said, I have this unrealistic expectation of what I can achieve for. I'm going to get into that in a second, probably because my mom brainwashed me with propaganda when I was a small child. That's very true. But I put in for it. I get accepted for the commissioning program. I get a full ride to Texas A&M. I get to go to Texas A&M. The first one in my family to graduate college. Like I go to Texas A&M, get to go back as an officer. They send me to flight school. So, I was a door gunner in the back seat of a helicopter, and now I got to go be a pilot, of all things, right? Like my destiny was going straight to be a pipe fitter. I'm like a 5th generation pipe fitter, okay? But I got to go be a pilot in the Marine Corps, and that was awesome. So I get to flight school in Florida, and they're like, this is gonna be really easy for you guys if you work really hard and you put in all the stuff, and if you have an engineering degree and you're really good at math, which sucks for the guy who graduated with a political science degree. And I can talk my way out of a bad situation, but math, not really my thing. And they're like, if you're gonna do well in flight school, you gotta be able to do math almost instantly. But again, I didn't believe any of that. I was like, nah, I got this. And I put in the time, and I followed some of these principles we're gonna talk about in a second. But I ended up, again, this is the awkward part, I'm sorry, but I have to tell you this so you'll understand and listen to the principles when we get to them. But I did end up graduating first in my class in Naval Flight School. You've got some rock stars that go through that program. And not because I was smarter, honestly, just because I believed that I could, right? But I graduated first in my class with a perfect score out of flight school. I got to choose the platform that I wanted to go fly. I got to go do that. Along the way, we also took what was a boot camp in a park and built Delta Life Fitness franchising. You just heard Kristen give you a brief description of what Delta Life is. It's a really awesome boutique fitness franchise for women. If you walk into Cindy's that she's opening on 1488, you'll see it's very professional. It's a really neat concept. 8 years ago, it was me standing in a school parking lot with 3 Cub Scout moms, right? So we took this from 3 Cub Scout moms in a park to what is now, this year we did $4.5 million in total sales. Last year was $2.3 million. Next year is going to be closer to 10, right? From a boot camp in a park. So all really great things and a first for my generation and coming from my family and the town I came from, right? Creating a $4.5 million company that has over 100 employees, getting to lead that kind of an organization. It's fun, it's creative, it wakes me up. I got to be a pilot in the Marine Corps. I got to go to college and go to Texas A&M. And even better than that, with only a few years left in the Marine Corps, my whole life I was brought up that you're just racing against retirement, right? What was your name, Lori?
Lori, yeah.
Lori, I love what you said a minute ago. Finally built it up now to where I can quit the JOB.
Right.
That's awesome. Good for you. Round of applause for Lori.
Yeah!
Well done. Well done. So my whole life I thought it was, as soon as you graduate high school, go into whatever you can do, and it's the race against retirement, right? I got to walk away from the Marine Corps with only a few years left from hitting that retirement as a Marine Corps pilot, which growing up as a kid, I would have thought that would have been the best case scenario. But now I'm never going to retire because now I understand that I can just achieve whatever I want to achieve. And I'm going to have setbacks, and it's not always going to be easy, but I'm going to continue to work hard, have this ridiculous optimistic attitude that I can achieve big things. So done really cool things the last 10 years, and I'm going to be a little vulnerable and share with you guys what my plans are for the next 10. Don't laugh at me or tell me because they're kind of crazy, they're kind of big. I'm gonna get vulnerable and I'm gonna tell you guys what I want to do over the next 10 years, and then we're gonna spend about a minute just in silence, and I want you guys to really think about some big crazy things that you guys can achieve over the next 10 years. And I'm not talking about get a 2-car garage. I've met with a lot of you people. We've got some amazing entrepreneurs in this room. Bob, Brad, Philip, the things you guys have done in this community. Christina, I got to hear some of your goals the other day. Jeff, what you and Lucille have been able to do. Vicky, hearing your story. You guys have done some great things, but I want you to really spend some time thinking about what your next 10 years can include, okay? So for the next 10 years for me, I want to continue growing Delta Life. We're right at about 30 units now that are either open or under development from coast to coast, California to Florida. but I want to take that sucker to 5,000 units. Really excited about that, which would be, at that time, it would be the #1 fitness franchise in the world, and I want to take it there. Also, I want to create a couple of other fitness concepts and launch those and grow those along the way. I want to continue to do public speaking. I want to try to do a TED Talk one day, and then not so soon, as soon as I can, probably within the next 12 months, I want to really make an effort to do that. I want to be a best-selling author. I want to be able to sell out entire stadiums and speak one day and demand $100,000 for a keynote. Elizabeth, I'll send you guys the invoice. That sounds crazy though, right? Like, okay, this dude that's speaking to 30 of us in a room in Houston today is going to have an audience of 200,000 and demand 100,000, but I can already see it in my head. Like, I'm gonna do it, right? And I'm pretty pumped up about it, and it's gonna happen. So that's some of my goals. That's what I want to achieve over the next 10 years, and I want to free you, because I'm telling you, I know, because I've been there. I know most of you in this room, you think you have a big goal, but you are limiting yourself. You have these false perceptions, these self-limiting ceilings. You're upper limiting yourself on what you think is actually possible. You don't actually think you can achieve just ridiculously great things, but I want you to act like there's no limitations. I'm not going to make you say them out loud, but let's just spend, everybody close your eyes, it's my favorite part. Close your eyes, and I'm going to go around and poke you on the stomach. I'm just kidding. Spend 60 seconds just picturing your perfect world 10 years from today. In as much detail as you can. Okay. That was like 30 seconds, but no big deal. Everybody see it? Everybody have it? All right, I'm done. See you guys later. Just kidding. Yeah, so flip your paper over, the one I gave you, if you can, and just write down 2 or 3 of those goals where you want to be 10 years from now. And I'm going to challenge you. Like, if I come over and see, like, make 10,000 more a year, like, we're going to fist fight, okay? Make it something that if other people saw it, they're going to laugh at you and tell you no way. If you went back to family dinner tonight and showed them, they'd all laugh at you and tell you no way. Those are the kind I'm talking about. Write down 2 or 3 things that you want for yourself in your life 10 years from today. Okay, hold on to those, think about them, update them, write notes as I go through the 6 principles that can help guide you and free you from the self-limiting factors we put on ourselves. Update this sheet, look at it as we go through these 6 principles, okay? Elizabeth, if we get close on time, will you give me like a 10-minute warning?
Yes.
Okay. I barely ever get to 4, 5, and 6, so I apologize in advance. Optimistically optimistic. This is a leadership style. It's my favorite. It's just it's not always. It's not pretending the world is flowers and rainbows and everything's always going to go perfect. But it's staying the course even if those things go off track, right? Like staying disciplined and getting what you want and working towards those things is always easy when the needle's moving in the direction you want. The people that achieve great things can stay disciplined and keep working towards it when the needle's not moving. That's when it's hard, right? Step number 1 is action. And for each one of these, like I said, I want you to be able to take tangible things from this. So each one, we're going to have the actual, what is it? We're going to have the tie-in, and then you're going to have the book that you can read to help you with that as well. So action. Nothing happens in this world until you take action, and you got to take an awful lot of it. I want to do the TED Talk that I told you about, right? So I was going to just keep saying for the rest of my life that one day I'm going to do a TED Talk, right? Until I started Law of Attraction, like you guys said. Who said put it out in the universe? Somebody over there said put it out in the universe. That's what I did. I had a lunch with Terry Weaver, and I told him, I'm going to do a TED Talk one day. He was like, okay, well, let's get you booked for some speeches. I was like, oh, crap. But then you have to do that. You have to take action, and it's going to be imperfect action, and you just keep building on top of it. Great book for taking more action is Grant Cardone's 10X Rule. I laugh about this all the time, but I mean it. I caution you to read that book, because once you read it, you won't sleep for like the next 2 months. You'll just be like working and nonstop going. So take that book with a lot of. I warn you, if you read it, you'll take a lot more action than you do right now, but it's a good one. Building great things, like I told you guys about, like Delta Life today is really something to be proud of, and it's awesome. Like sometimes I step back from it and I look at it and I was like, how did that happen? Like, how did it get here? But it started in a park with a logo that I think I drew in crayon. You guys should see the first logo. It's embarrassing, right? But just we took action, and one step after one step after one step. So whatever those things are you wrote on the back of the paper, what's action step one? Like, you wrote the big giant goal that you want 10 years from now, but what are we gonna do Monday morning when we wake up to start working towards that one thing, right? So action is always the very first step to start moving you towards those things you want. The next one is belief. This is one of my favorite ones. This is the whole principle of optimistically optimistic is rooted in belief. The Steve Jobs video, everybody's seen the Steve Jobs video. It's my absolute favorite because it's just true. Steve Jobs is sitting there and he says, you can accomplish anything in this world that you want the moment you realize that everything you see around you was created by men and women no smarter than me and you. And it's just like, sometimes we say that, but do we really mean it? Like, do you really, when you drive by the ExxonMobil campus, do you think, like, I can do that? No, we don't, right? Like, we limit ourselves in what we truly believe. But that is the first step. You have to have this ridiculous belief. Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap, is one of the best books to describe to you what is the phenomenon of upper limiting, how we do it to ourselves, and how we can use certain techniques to try to break through that upper limiting phenomenon, okay? So you gotta have an unrealistic, unhealthy belief in the fact that you can do those things that are on the back of the paper that you wrote down, okay? Once you believe it, and you start moving in the right direction, and you really honestly believe you can get there, comes the confidence, okay? And each time you have one of those successes, the very first time when I tricked Kristen, who I have no business being married to, she's awesome and beautiful and smart and hardworking and a great mother. So when I tricked her into marrying me, I was like, I can do anything, right? Like, there's something to this. And then I got accepted into the MESAP program, and everybody was telling me I couldn't. And then, I did so well in flight school, and then we created Delta Life, and then, I ran the Ironman. That's my favorite one. I just completed the Ironman that they did, right? And which, like, if you're looking at somebody that's in great shape, you're like, oh, well, you got no problem. But, like, I ran the Ironman. So, and I sat down at breakfast and told Terry Weaver, you guys know Terry Weaver? I told Terry, I was like, yeah, I'm going to run the Ironman here in a couple months. He's like, do you know what that consists of? He wasn't the only one. I mean, my father-in-law was like thinking I was going to drown and die on the swim. So I didn't have a lot of that there from surrounding people. But each time you set your mind to something and you achieve it, it starts building on this confidence. I tell this story a lot, and it's one of my favorites. Confidence, we can give confidence. A lot of us in this room, we're to the point where we're a little older and we're not as influential as younger people, but we have a lot of power in this room to influence the younger generations, the kids, by filling their head with unrealistic, unhealthy propaganda about how awesome they are. And we should do that instead of always speaking about kids these days and this generation sucks, like, right? That's one of my favorite things. You can go back in the Old Testament in the Bible and they're complaining about the next generation of kids and how they're unruly. Like, we need to change that and not fill the kids with, whose kid in here wants to be a YouTuber when they grow up? Has anybody heard that? And we all had to work really hard, and so we hate when the kids say, I want to be a YouTuber, and we slap them around, and we say, get a real job, boy. Like, right? We get so mad about it, but think about it. from the signing of the Magna Carta through Declaration of Independence to creating this country, our generation, we've continued to build better and better opportunities for the generation behind us, and now the fact that our kids actually have a chance to be a YouTuber and make a living out of it, that's amazing. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, don't limit those kids and beat it out of their head that they need to have a real job. Like, encourage them to take advantage of the opportunities we've all been fighting for. Like, we fought for these opportunities for our kids. Celebrate them. So I was giving, most of you heard this, or some of you have heard this, I was in 4th grade and I had to read, it's Cowboy and Western Day, so I've got my little cowboy hat on, and I have to read a poem to the rest of the 4th grade. This is my first public speaking gig, right? So I read this poem pretty horribly, just because I invited Texas education, so the poem, was a little tricky for me. But I read the poem, I come off the stage, it's the first time, I'm like literally shaking to death, I'm terrified. My mom walks over to me, and I know some of you have heard this. My mom walks over to me, she's like, "Did you see what happened out there?" I'm like, "Yeah, I look like a goon in this get-up you put me in." And stumbled through that poem out there. She's like, "No, Josh, God put you on this planet just for that. You killed it out there. That was the best speech I've ever seen. You're either going to be a politician or a preacher one day, probably the president. I don't know." And I was like, So I went to junior high with the rest of the kids, and I signed up for public speaking because you have to. And I walked in there very cocky that morning, like, "Look out, dudes. I am ordained by God to give this speech," right? Like, and every time I gave a speech from then on, throughout junior high and high school, I would be terrified and I'd shaken and I was scared and I didn't want to go do it. I was talking to Bob before I came up here. This terrifies me still today. I'm still nervous standing in front of you guys. But that voice in the back of my head of my mom telling me I was literally born to lead humans and be a speaker, like, that still gives me the confidence to get up in front of people. So confidence is an incredible thing, but your action item for that one has nothing to do with you. I just want you to spread propaganda, unrealistic, unhealthy, the kind that they're going to have to get psychiatry help for, years in the future. I want you to fill your circle with that type of propaganda, right? Your wife. Because look, we're the worst on the ones we love. We critique, I'm just as bad as everybody else. We critique the ones we love because we care about them. But those are the ones, like, the whole world's telling them no. The whole world's beating them up and I'm just being a realist. I hate that word. Optimistic and realism doesn't go together. It's okay. If the grandkid or your daughter wants to be a YouTuber, tell her that's awesome, right? Tell her she was born to be a YouTuber because somebody's going to make millions of dollars being a YouTuber. Why not them? Why do we limit the ones we love, right? It's silly. So confidence. Confidence is a big one. Visualization. This is one of the most practical that you can actually take away with you. It's one of my favorites. A great book by this is Psycho-Cybernetics. He just gives a lot of phenomenal techniques in this book, Psycho-Cybernetics, that professional sports players still use to this day. Tom Brady, Bob said he remembered that. Tom Brady still uses this before every game. He visualizes the entire game, how it's going to go, in as full detail as he can. Roger Bannister in 1954 was at the Olympics, and he was trying to beat the 4-minute mile. Are we familiar with this story? Roger Bannister, 1954. So for thousands of years, people just said that it was impossible for the human body to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. Roger Bannister had already accomplished the first 3 on this list. He was already taking a lot of action to prepare for this. He already believed that he could beat the 4-minute mile, and he had the confidence. But his real secret was visualization. He would visualize down to the detail of what it would feel like coming out of the corners, the straightaways. He would, as in detailed as he could, he pictured crossing the line and falling into his dad's arms, breaking the 4-minute mile. In 1954, Roger Bannister did run the mile at the Olympics in 3 minutes and 59 seconds, first human on the planet to ever beat the 4-minute mile. Mostly because, and he said this, mostly because of that visualization technique. Now, what's cool about that, what I was telling you guys, is that most of us in this room, me included still, like I still have a problem with this, we're only limited by ourselves, right? For thousands of years, nobody could beat the 4-minute mile. Roger Bannister does it. Guess what happened in 1955? Like 3 more people broke the 4-minute mile. Nowadays, and then college kids started breaking it. Nowadays, high school kids are breaking the 4-minute mile. But nobody did it for all that time because they couldn't see it. They didn't believe it, right? So if you can free yourself of those limiting factors, and if you can build that confidence in that belief system and then visualize it, truly visualize it, you can accomplish some really cool things. In the Marine Corps, they teach you a technique, or Naval Flight School, they teach you a technique called chair flying. And this is something you guys can use every single day. Chair flying just means that they always say that, I did graduate first in my class with perfect score in flight school, right? But they say any kid, say you have 13 flights in flight school. They say any kid on flight 13, if you put him back at flight 1, he would get the perfect score and be number 1. Every single time. He'd graduate bottom of his class, right? Bottom of his class at the end, put him back in with everybody else, and he's going to graduate number 1. How's that happen?
He knows he can.
He's done it. He's seen it, right? So they taught us a thing in Naval Flight School. They're like, you only get 13 of those flights. But in between each flight, they call it chair flying. Kristen remembers because she had to check my checklist with me, right? Like, you're supposed to just sit in a chair, right? And go through the entire flight in your head. Tower 365, requesting takeoff, and Kristen would read the scripted, the tower. But you chair fly it. You go through it in as much detail as you can, and you're gaining a flight on all those other kids, right? So I didn't study more. Kristen can tell you, we were building Delta Life. We had 3 kids. We were trying to survive. I didn't study. I studied probably tremendously less than the rest of the kids, but I did a lot of that visualization, a lot of those chair flying techniques, and it gave me more flights than the other kids. Your body literally cannot tell the difference between you visualizing it and having the actual experience, right? So visualization, the last thing that he talks about in psychocybernetics is called the desk technique. So he says that before you go into every meeting, what Tom Brady does, what I would do before every flight, is he would picture a desk, and as you're pulling up to the event, and at first it takes about 5 minutes to go through this, and you get better and better. I did the one before I came in here today. I did it in 20 seconds. So you just close your eyes, and you imagine a blank desk, and you pull everything out of your head, and you put it on the desk. Everything, oh man, I forgot to mow the grass, didn't do the dishes last night, Kristen's mad at me because I forgot to do the laundry, oh crap, we didn't pay the rent. You take everything that's in your head and you take it out and you put it on the desk. Everything you're thinking about that's weighing you down at the moment. Then you pull out the bottom drawer, you swipe everything into the drawer, and you close it. Then you pull out the drawer above that and you take out the item that you need. In my case, it was always the helicopter, right? I would just take out the helicopter. So now it's just, this sounds ridiculous. I'm telling you, I told you, I'm not a theory guy. I hate kumbaya. This stuff really works. It's really cool. So I'd set up the helicopter, and I would visualize going in, meeting the instructor, doing the brief. I would visualize it in as much detail as I could very quickly. The instructor sitting there, yeah, that's right, good job. Well done. I'd visualize walking out to the helicopter, asking him about his weekend, hopping in the helicopter. I would visualize just real quickly, executing the movements as good as I could, and then come back. And then I would visualize it all the way up to the point where him and I would get out of the helicopter and he would come around to the front. I visualize this every single time. And he would shake my hand and say, hey, well done, son. You really impressed me today. You were much more prepared than most of the kids I've been flying with lately. Good job. And that's all I would do. And it used to take me 5 minutes. But the first time he got out and came around and shook my hand and told me that, I was like, holy cow. I have the secret. This is the secret to life. And I've never forgotten that. I use it all the time. We landed, I was just telling Bob, I'm a kid from Vider and I have no business being in some of the rooms. Kristen and I got to go to San Diego and stay on this investment firm's yacht in San Diego Harbor, and we got to go to this restaurant they own, and they brought out seafood towers, and we got to negotiate this giant deal for all these Delta Life units they're going to put in California. And even that, every time before we would go into the next room, I would go through that visualization process because I didn't want to mess it up, right? I wanted to see the best possible outcome. Now, the caveat to that, it doesn't always go the way you want it to, but that's where you come back to your optimistic principles of just staying grounded, and it's not always going to go the way you want. You're going to have those setbacks, and you just keep firing through those things. Which brings me to growth. You can never peak. What's bad is success. We had a high level. I always heard like early success is bad for you. If you accumulate wealth or success too fast, you don't gain the knowledge to go along with it. And I always thought that was silly and dumb. Kind of happened to us in Dust Life. Our first couple of years, we had tremendous growth. We were really cocky. I was like, see, Dad, I told you that one leadership book I read had me better prepared than your 40 years of working. You know, it was very naive. There's no substitute. You have to put in the work. So one of the problems is that if you do have that initial success, you can get kind of complacent. Jeff, I don't know if you've ever seen that. You and Lucille have done an amazing job with We Clean For You. Do you ever get to the point where you're like, you just get complacent? And
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're human, yeah.
Yeah. So my thing is, you can never peak. You know, you set up good disciplines and good structure and good morning routines, and then you see all this great success. And then when you get that success, it freed you from all the things that made you do that. Watch out, Lori, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to have to watch out for that. You quit the JOB. You can't drop it now. You'll have to go back. You can never peak. You have to always grow. The Peter Principle simply states that a lot of times we promote those around us to their level of incompetence, right? Like you hire somebody at the front desk, they knock it out of the park, they do great. You promote them, they do great again, you promote them, and then all of a sudden they're promoted out of their level of competence. And that's a very real thing. And us as leaders and business owners, we have to be careful to not let Peter Principle stop our company. There's been several times where I was the limiting factor in Dust Life's growth, and I have a couple of choices. Even like I told you guys right now, the company did $4.5 million, last year, and it's just going to continue to grow. We're at 30 units. When this thing gets to 150 units and it's doing, 20, 30 million a year, the CEO that's going to run that company, one, will be better dressed, probably. Two, he's going to have to know a heck of a lot more than I know. That's just a fact. I'm not managing as big of a team as that guy's going to have to lead. So I have two choices. I can either continue to grow and learn and pay for coaching and go to masterminding and not miss any Inspired Leaders meetings, right? Like, I can either try to grow and keep up with that, or I've got to step aside and let somebody else take over. So growth is just dramatically important. Even, I'm sure some of the more accomplished entrepreneurs in this room, Bob, Philip, Brett, I'm sure you guys would tell them, like, it never stops. You've got to continue to grow and learn if you have those big dreams. 10 minutes, I'm already on number 5.
And then you can do questions.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're good.
Gratitude. This one is super important. So, who felt selfish or greedy when you were writing those things on the back of your paper earlier? Did anybody feel selfish or greedy? I know sometimes I do, right? Like, I want to get $100,000 for a 1-hour keynote. Like, that sounds, like, can't that money go to some kids in Africa that are starving, right? Like, sometimes it feels selfish to have those big of goals. The best thing I do is I always start every morning in a state of gratitude, because no matter what happens, no matter what we achieve, no matter if I do those things I'm trying to do over the next 10 years or not, I try to start every single day with a healthy dose of gratitude, because every single one of us that are sitting in this room here in the Woodlands, I assume you drove in a pretty nice car, you're all very well dressed. We're living as the top 1% luckiest humans that have ever walked the earth. Like, that's already amazing, right? 80% of the world, what does it say? 80% of the world today lives on less than $10 a day, right? Like, all of us would spend that at the gas station on the way home, on like a fidget spinner or whatever those things are. The book I like for that is Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's just a great book. That story he tells about A Father Forgets, where he talks about how he's measuring his son through the lens of what he expects. And Father Forgets is one of the greatest poems ever. If you haven't read that one, go back and look at it. But when you start every day, and I'm not kidding, and on bad days, I'll even leave halfway through the day, do I not? Like, I'll get up halfway through the day and be like, I'm going outside, I'm doing some gratitude, I'll be back to deal with you guys and all your problems. You just have to. If you start every day thinking about the fact that you're the luckiest 1% human on the earth, if you miss one deal, like, is it that big of a deal? Like, if you're literally starting every day realizing you're the luckiest 1% of humans to ever walk the earth. If you don't get to buy the new BMW, is it really that bad of a day, right? Like, so I'll start every single day. Also, gratitude and fear can't coexist, which is great. Like, one of the limiting things that keeps us from accomplishing great things is fear. Fear of people criticizing us or anything like that. So fear and gratitude can't coexist. So gratitude, that's one of my favorite ones. I start every single day with, I always do my affirmations. Love telling myself how awesome I am. Then I visualize that day and the week on what I want to achieve. And then I always do my gratitude. I just really write down 3 things I'm super grateful for right there, and it keeps me fired up. So the last thing, and then I want to take it to questions, because that's my favorite part. I want to answer any questions you have if we have some time. There's truly 2 worlds, right? There's the reported world, and there's the created world. The reported world is, it's hot in Texas, and there's no change in that, right? The reported world is, here's the facts, here's what you have to live within. But the law of attraction is a very real thing. The created world, anything you wrote on the back of that paper, the only thing that can stop you from achieving those things is you. The created world is absolutely 100% there. You just have to be bold enough and brave enough to follow these 6 principles, to take that action, to believe that you can do it, have the confidence, okay, visualize it, continue to have a growth mindset, and then start your everyday with gratitude. But you can create anything or any world you want, I promise you. And that's it. Questions. I know you guys got to have some questions. This is my favorite part. Employees, any kind of question.
I have a question. So you're multiplying all of your locations, and obviously, I mean, you 2 are the folks in charge, and you're the attitude leader, you're the visionary. How do you multiply that with the people that are leading the individual locations, and you want them to have a similar type of demeanor to help them grow their individual locations?
It's a really good question, and honestly, I've messed it up a lot. Right? I started it by making it about me and my personality and trying to be charismatic and deliver that through the organization. That hits a certain limit. If you guys all read Good to Great, Jim Collins, remember the part where he talks about the difference between a level 4 leader and a level 5 leader? A level 4 leader is a charismatic person who but you kind of limit the company because you can only go so far. A level 5 leader, doesn't matter if they're charismatic or not, they step out and kind of let systems go with that. So everybody, I know I did. When my first business coach set us down and told us to make core values, I was like, dude, I'm paying you this much a year. I need to increase revenue, and you want me to write down my core values. This is a waste of money. I didn't understand how important core values were. And I also didn't understand the process. Core values aren't something you just throw down on paper one day because they're things you like and you feel good about. Core values aren't integrity, humility. They can be. I'm not saying they don't. But there's exercises you have to go through, and we've been through them, and there's been tears involved, and there's been it's intense sometimes, but we really push out what should the core values be, and then us on our leadership team, every quarter we go through a thing where we put up all 5 of the core values, and we either get a plus, a plus, or a plus minus on, and we have to rate everybody else on the leadership team on how they're living those core values. So I think it starts with that, and you have to, no matter if it makes people upset or they cry or get upset, you have to demand that. And then my job as the visionary is to take that, make our core values speech, disseminate it out. We start with judging ourselves on the core values at headquarters, and then teaching all the franchisees those core values and how they're going to have to live by them also. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
It's a good question. And it's hard to do in a franchise system too, because you don't have direct control. Like, I've got to trust that Cindy is going to carry those on to her employees. So it's complicated. And we've messed it up a bunch.
I think you're in a pretty unique, not totally unique, but to where like you haven't like completely exploded, but you're like there, and you're not like brand new. And most of us are our own bosses and everything like that. Do you think it's okay and important to kind of be like looked at as crazy?
What do you mean?
like just your rationale and your goals and your dreams and everything you're doing, like Cardone.
Yeah.
Like I would think a lot of people look at him and think he's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Do you think that's okay?
I think it depends. You follow Gary Vee?
Oh yeah.
So I think Gary Vee would answer this the exact same way. I think it's what you want, right? Like if you're the guy that you realize that you're the luckiest 1% of humans on the planet, and like your dream world is just being a teacher and making $40,000 a year and spending all summer with your kids just hanging out and going hiking, and that's like your perfect world, then that's awesome, and you should go for that. If the things that fulfill you are creating virtual reality gaming centers, then you should go crush that, right? Like, it depends on what fulfills you and what drives you, but no matter what it is, if it's on the low side, if it's being a teacher or a YouTuber or becoming president, no matter what it is, you should absolutely go after whichever one you want. Life's just too short, and like, this is all dumb anyway, right? Like, we're all just little beings walking around. We're all gonna be gone, like that fast. Like, it's all pointless. Go for what you want, and don't live your life on what other people want you to do, right?
How did you, in the beginning, the very beginning, how did you guys get into the fitness? Why wasn't it something else? Was it like you decided what your why was? I mean, how did you get into that fitness thing? In the very beginning with the 3 soccer moms and why wasn't it something else? Why was it that particular?
That's a good question, and I get asked this a lot, like, especially women's fitness, right? Like, and by the way, like, that could go away tomorrow, and like Monday morning, I got a whole new list of ideas me and Kristen are getting to work on, right? Like, so, and I kind of get obsessed with things, and so I took this little thing in the park way further than it should have ever been taken. Right? Like, just get obsessed, but. The way it came out is when I went to Texas A&M, they did pay for me to go to school, but they trained me to be a PTI, a personal physical training instructor, so I had to lead the Corps of Cadets through workouts every morning to get them ready to go to OCS. And I was running a Cub Scout group for my son at one of the local schools, and one of the moms asked me if I would run a class in the school parking lot like I did for the Corps of Cadets. I wish I could give you a better answer.
No, that's great.
But that's what's kind of cool about it, right? Because a lot of us look at big companies and think, why can't you ever come up with that big idea? That's what I'm trying to tell you about step 1. It just came from going to a parking lot with 3 women and just taking many little action steps over and over again to get what's cool. Like, that's what's cool. You don't have to put so much pressure on yourself to think that you can't go try something on Monday because you got to have it figured out when you go into it. Action always creates new opportunities, and each opportunity like opened the next door, and it just kept going. And if those doors would have all closed, I would have done something else and found some other opportunity to go with. Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you for serving.
Oh, thank you. I
We
enjoyed it.
appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks. Anything else?
I'm going to embarrass you.
Uh-oh.
How many? So what did you fly?
Huey's.
Okay. He didn't just serve. How many air medals did you receive?
I have 9 air medals.
Oh, my.
Yeah. You don't get those flying supplies back and forth.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, thanks guys. I really appreciate it.